types like we see some other people doing. But nevertheless, he is targeting Warrior. However, RDU, alongside Casey coming into this playoff, both had a contingency plan for people who were targeting Warrior, and that is playing Zephyrus, Rattlegore, and Blood-Sworn Mercenary, as this time Raven has nailed the key card inclusions on the graphic, because this package can give the deck different win conditions against decks that are just trying to shut down the linear nature of Bomb Warrior by destroying the weapons and then saying, okay, you don't have a win condition anymore. Now, you have multiple alternate win conditions in the deck instead. However, because Seiko is playing real-life Hearthstone decks with weapon destruction in them, as opposed to Galakron, Warlock, and Quest Druid, is he better equipped to just be able to win the matchup in the conventional way with just the additional boon that comes from having a Kobold Sticky Finger, as opposed to being all in hard countering Bomb Warrior? I think the dynamic here is really fascinating by the way these two lineups clash against each other.
And honestly, I don't think we have a clear answer. I think we're going to kind of learn as we go. Right now, we did see Demon Hunter absolutely obliterate Warrior earlier today in what was it, like turn 6 kill against Warrior or something close to that, which was kind of insane. So the potential is there. Seiko already facing down a minion quite early in the game though, but he has yet again just a pretty solid curve. These Cultnir fights again, I'm just interested to see what kind of impact they have and the impact they're going to have right now. Is it going to stop Radu, Corsair cashing on curve?
Yeah. Just so happens that RDU is perfectly happy to deal with the scenario because of the Blood Cell freebooter that he picked up from the Sky Raider, but we also see that Seiko's plan did pay off. It did shut down the Corsair cache on that turn, which is very nice indeed.
Yeah, there is a certain value of going for the Spirit Jailer, purely because he has the Shard Shatter in hand. If the board keeps going wide, you know there's at least one cost pirate in the hand right now. If the board is going wide, he can go for it. And if not, well, he has Mana Feeder and One Maker next turn anyway, which act as 2 or 3 drops, depending on when you play them.
Wrench Caliber is hit. The Corsair cache. And because of that Blood Cell freebooter, really, RDU is going to be relatively even on the board when it comes to that Wrench Caliber, which means he's not going to have the problem that we saw in the previous series where you just cannot go face because there's too much board presence winding you down. Like, this first Wrench Caliber swing might just pick off the Panthara, but after that, I think RDU's in prime position to actually just initiate a race nice and early here.
He is. His hand is going to have to come together a little bit, in my opinion, though, because Brawl isn't usually a card that gets good value versus Demon Hunter, and outside of those 2 brawls, his hand is an unactivated Zephyrus and a risky Skipper, right? So although he has the weapon bit ticked off, no problem, he has control of this board. It only takes Seiko to start chaining minions now, or chaining your weapon into Lapidary, into whatever, to cause some issues for RDU.
That looks like a good draw on the surface. Just fill out the curve this turn. Very, very nice indeed. But it's extremely miserable against the threat of Dr. Krastenov coming down the other way, which I think might just be punishing enough to force Seiko into doing something else here. And, well, there's the Rattlegore dealt with, Raven.
Yep. Seiko actually not running a normal, an in-deck consume magic and natural, that's the word I was looking for. So him creating that one is absolutely huge. Rattlegore, not much of a problem anymore.
You can see this is the decision point now, the first one that is incredibly impactful to the state of the game from RDU, because under normal circumstances, instant upgrade this turn. Just start giddying up and initiate the race. However, this is now the first turn where that one of, in this list, Kobold Sticky Finger is available for Seiko.
It's tough. It's very easy to say, isn't it, that, well, it's a one-off, don't play around it, go face. It's like, well, right, but you could just lose the game off the back of this choice. I still think even after that, because the rest of his hand looks so bad, the upgrade just seems fine. Yes, you get mega punished, but
it's not
otherwise his turn is terrible.
It's not even just you lose the game off the back of this choice. Like, give me this decision on ladder and I'll quite happily not play around the one-of. And if I lose, I lose. I'll concede and I'll queue another game. This is RDU's World Championship spot on the line based on this decision, which makes making that kind of gamble so much riskier in your own mind.
Jump out the Tempo Zephyrus.
Such a beautiful sheath.
Yep.
There's the Rattle Gore. Not going to be impactful for quite a while yet.
I mean, it is impactful. It is impactful. He just drew a 9-drop as opposed to a card that actually could have done something this turn.
It's impactful because it's not going to be impactful for a while yet,
Yes.
which is, there you go, kind of makes sense. And this is the problem. Normally, when we've been seeing anti-warrior lineups, not decks with tech cards in them, but lineups, they're normally very slow decks, which means Rattle Gore makes sense because you're probably going to play a very slow game.
Yes.
This is not the case in this game, and suddenly a 9-drop on turn 6 when you're getting beaten up does not look too hot. And if this Lapidary lives, it's absolutely huge.
It's fine. It's the middle outcome. RDU, I think, has to be happy with that in his scenario.
Oh yeah, anything but the Lapidary is fantastic, I think.
Yep. Yeah, it's exactly the point I was making at the start, where, like, because Seiko's not all in on the anti-warrior thing, to the point where he's playing weird decks, like, we have tested the anti-warrior strats against warrior probably more than anyone who isn't directly involved as a Grandmaster and has had to have played those matchups. Right. And we've got so close on so many occasions to, like, putting together these weird fatigue strategies with Bomb Warrior, where you just you play as a really bad version of Control Warrior instead, but you just don't quite get there by the factor of, like, maybe 1 or 2 cards, right? So suddenly the addition of a Rattle Gore to the deck in that scenario might just flip things in your favor, let alone the Zephyrus coming down on top of that as well. But
or the Blood Swan for the Rattle Gore later.
Or the Blood Swan Mercenary, yeah, exactly. But that's just not the world that RDU finds himself in here, because it's not a Rattle Gore kind of game. He's just getting beaten up by what is fundamentally a very aggressive deck on the other side. It just happens to play a Kobold Sticky Finger in it.
An incredibly tricky turn there for Seiko as well. I think I was probably moving towards insanity at this point, but thinking about Soul Shear, the 1-3 after the attack, and then Shard Shatter, just to get it out of the way for the Skull. And I think Seiko was considering the implications of how soon he can realistically play Skull, but chose to bail on that and go for the King push instead.
Krastanov is huge. Deals with the Cane, gets the extra weapon swings on the go. Now this is danger time, honestly, for both players, because Seiko already has 4 bombs shuffled into his deck. That's 8 damage. 8 damage this turn.
He has to play the Lapidary, right?
I think so.
He can Soul Share the 4-1
The Shard
anyway.
Shatter, you mean? The Shard Shatter?
Sorry, yes, apologies. Shard Shatter. He can still Soul Share anyway.
I think I want to Shard Shatter and then spend 4 mana on damage this turn. I want to Shard Shatter, Second Slice, Twin Slice, Twin Slice, Hero Power, and then next turn you just hit lethal with Skull. That's my plan.
It's tough, right? Because on the other hand, the more fragments are, the more you might naturally draw, which then heals you outside of bomb range.
Yes.
So it's tricky. It's tricky.
That is currently the plan as I see it. So I think allocating that mana to the damage this turn is important.
Yeah, if you're not going to Soul Share, I do think using these Twin Slices up is correct. You are right. Because 6 mana of his 8 next turn is likely to be used on Skull, which then gives him limited options. And obviously these Twin Slices still exist, so they would have used up all his mana anyway. Puts RDU all the way down to 1.
One way or the other, this game is ending very soon. Upgrade changes nothing.
Armor up Shield Slam, though. Keeps him in the game. So many draws for lethal.
5 bombs in the deck after this attack goes off. Seiko needs to dodge 2 of them while hitting a lethal of his own.
He really just wants the lethal off the top, doesn't he? Let's not bother with Skull.
Yep. 5 bombs, 0 fragments. Well, this is the game.
Yep. Hold on. The hero power still looks green to me. There's one.
No, his skull's gone. His skull's lit up. He's died.
Oh.
Yep. Oh.
Wow. Oh, wow. 3. Okay, is it ever going to end? What
And look
game number 1.
at what it means to RDU. Can barely sit still. He knows that's the biggest win. He mentioned to me specifically, like I said, I had a little DM conversation with him about his Highlander Rogue, and I was kind of giving him a little bit of stick of like, what is this deck? He very specifically said to me, I am more concerned about anti-warrior strategies than I am with getting a win with Highlander Rogue. So at that point, if you take him at his word, he is now comfortable in this series because he met the anti-warrior strategy and he has found the win with his warrior. So now, with just the Demon Hunter and the Rogue left to fall back on, you have to think RDU, from his perspective, is now extremely comfortable in this series. Me, from my perspective, not so much, because I still don't believe in that Highlander Rogue as it currently stands, Raven. I still think that has some questions that need to be answered.
I also think, to be fair, depending on when asked about whether it was about who about specifically, but anti-warrior strategies I don't think is a fair thing to stick to Seiko's lineup. It is obviously anti-warrior, but I think RDU might have been more talking or worried about the hard anti-warrior lineups, not the tech cards that Seiko's gone for. Because as we've mentioned, all day watching Seiko play, is that his decks are good Hearthstone decks with tech cards in them. They are not, the Yala approach, which is warrior will not win. And if it does, I do just lose the series. So I do think, although that was obviously a huge hurdle for RDU to get over, getting a win with that warrior, I don't think the series is solved quite yet. And RDU will be going for his Demon Hunter in this game, and he's going to be going up against, I'm not sure of yet. But looking at this here, it is the Horde Pillager. Again, we have already seen this once today. We're using that Spectral Sight Horde Pillager list. Not too common, at least in the European Grandmasters so far, but one that RDU has chosen for this one, and it is going up against Seiko's Mage list now.
Yeah, and Seiko on the Mage, as you can see, 2 Cobalt Sticky Fingers in there as well, as he is wont to do in all of his decks, but it is at its core the Conjurer's Calling version of the deck. He is just making room for those Sticky Fingers by not playing Arcane Intellect, for example, and making room elsewhere with cutting one of the one-offs. So Jandis and AI look like the cuts from the regular list to find room for those 2 Cobalt Sticky Fingers in there, which of course can still put some work in against Demon Hunter specifically. But yeah, you can see, I mean, the player expressions say it all. RDU's expression at the end of last game and Seiko's at the start of this one. You were wondering how meaningful that win was in a Conquest series. It was everything to both of these players.
And here we go. Game number 2. Pretty good opening there for RDU on the top. At least has that one maker and Eldraki Warblades, but Seiko is awfully close to a fantastic opening hand here.
It's pretty solid to me. Cram Session would of course be the dream at this point. This 1-3 almost certainly lives outside of Soulshear on 2, which would make a Cram Session pickup pretty insane alongside this Primordial Studies, but he does not find it. Does put together some kind of Sorcerer's Apprentice Cyclone plan now over the coming turns.
Yeah, he could just go Primordial Studies anyway this turn and then have the One Thief. Well, that part, the One Thief, looks pretty good.
Does indeed.
Gonna give a quick glance to Stuart, of course. It is just a Discover a spell, so you gotta never discount that, but Lab Partner right now seems a little bit better than Stuart in the future.
I agree. He already has a Cyclone in his hand. He already has a One Thief that he's playing this turn. Like, I don't think he needs to be overly concerned with the value that can come from Stuart.
Yeah, and even Elemental Allies, the card that's going to be good sooner rather than later getting picked up there, because, of course, Deep Freeze, fantastic card overall against Demon Hunter, but maybe a little bit too slow for Seiko's plans.
Agreed. Hand not really yet coming together for Seiko.
What if he just goes anyway? It's 3 spells, and he's got a chance again in Elemental next turn.
Yeah. It's an awkward chance, though.
Gonna take it a little bit slower. Let's save his coin so we can coin out a Cobalt Sticky Finger next turn.
I do agree with what you're saying to an extent, though, because, you know, you can either trust your deck to give you something that really rounds out your turn, or you can just say, all right, I take 3 spells right now, and hopefully one of those 3 spells gives me something to do, like gives me an AI or a cram session or just something to generate value for myself. I think that's a reasonable way of looking at it as well. Okay. Good enough.
That helps. Yeah.
Looking for an elemental. Does not hit one.
I wonder if
Rare
Thalnos is actually
situation.
the pick. Yeah.
It's a rare situation where I think you would have taken either of the elemental spell damage minions over an Astromancer Solarian there if you were offered it. Nearly.
Job's done.
Card draws probably what he's after. Didn't get any. Pretty rubbish Cyclone overall, wasn't it?
It's not great.
I say rubbish. The cards are fine. It's not achieving what Seiko actually wants it to achieve in this game.
Right.
Because being able to bat aside the 5-drop play is obviously powerful, but so what? Like that's the problem. Okay, you get to kill a 5-drop, then what? No progression after that.
Treasure? Loot?
Clean Horde Pillager turn to me.
Yeah.
Against a not double Sticky Finger deck, you could have certainly talked me into hero power and trade into the Sorcerer's Apprentice and then load up Marrow Slicer afterwards, but obviously that's ludicrously risky against the double Sticky Finger list.
I did wonder as well whether it was worth using that mana for double jump that turn as well.
It just puts Skull into a bad spot though, doesn't it?
It wouldn't necessarily be Skull though, right? That's the thing.
No,
It would
I know,
be Consume
I know.
Magic or Spectral Sight. And
Yeah.
he has a lot of big things kind of knocking around in his hand already. So is his draws only going to get smaller? It's just a thought as to when he's going to be able to squeeze it in.
Yeah. I think having the option to at least some of the time just rip Skull on demand on the right-hand side is worth holding on to the double jump for a couple of extra turns at least.
That's fair.
Nice, big swing turn with the Glade Bound.
Yep. But now, these spells, I guess, are going to come into use for Seiko, whether it's the Rolling Fireball, the Apexis Blast, whatever. He can just get rid of this and not have to worry too much about it, at least hitting him in the face next turn. Because that's when you know the Glade Bound or the Lapidary's been insane, right? It gets its effect off, and then it gets to hit punch you in the face the turn after. That's when you should be afraid.
Whoa. Not going to answer this cleanly. Looks like he's going to load up minions and go for a Ray of Frost turn instead.
Yeah, I wonder if like Mirror Entity just Ray of Frost looks okay here as well.
Yeah, sure.
Because he has Rolling Fireball, right? Like he can kill pretty much with Devolving Missile's Rolling Fireball. I think
That's
it's
fair.
fair to assume he can kill whatever gets played this turn. And then worst case, if it's like Militia or something, he has no Frost Nova.
That Consume Magic was such a sick draw because it gave RDU the security to be able to run through that Skull. Did obviously have the opportunity to hit that Spectral Sight that we just saw picked up off the Skull, but since he drew the Consume Magic, his percentages increased to the level where he felt like it was just a turn.
Yeah, 2 out of 3. I think you'd take that, right?
Yeah, on top of that, the threat of Counterspell on the other side as well, though, which would have blown up the turn, but didn't really have anything else appropriate to be testing Counterspell with anyway.
What to do? I will crush your delusions of grandeur.
It's just nothing happening for Seiko here. Second Skull?
Insane.
My kingdom for an altruist, Raven.
Who cares? Just hit him in the face with all your cheap cards. Who needs
Yeah. Fair enough.
To be fair, like that Horde Pillager, which is, I guess, the Altruist in this list, did a lot of work.
Just Gonna drop the Consume Magic. Doesn't need the Outcast value at this point. He has just about all the cards he will ever need. Start loading up the damage.
He's just running out of time.
Yep.
He's had to, basically with this hand, and it happens sometimes where you have to end up playing like more of a control mage style based on how the game just plays out, but he's trying to play a control mage style with no payoff. There's nothing in his future right now. He can stall, he can clear the board, but with a Demon Hunter drawing this many cards pretty freely, it's not looking too great. And Elemental Allies is just not paying off for him, is it?
It's not. It's not whatsoever. Of course, this could be the turn where that Deep Freeze could have been played if he was to take that instead. Six Soul Fragments in RDU's deck currently. 4 mana Sociologist Militia in hand. 5 Soul Fragments. 4 Soul Fragments.
No.
No. I was having so much fun.
I just want to say something that you're probably going to shout at me for.
Okay, I'm ready.
Is it always Militia this turn? I guess so, because it fits the Lapidary in.
Yes, obviously I was going to shout at you for that.
You didn't, so I think I got away with it.
Yeah, you did. I'm in a good mood. What can I say?
Frostnova is going to be able to buy Seiko some time. There's just so much damage. The Marrow Slicer, the Chaos Strike, the Twin Slice. It's pretty much just lethal unless Seiko can actually stick some threatening minions on the board, because it's not about whether Seiko can stop the board as it is now, although of course he has to. It's about whether he can like either threaten lethal faster or defend against this insane number of and high-powered attacks that are going to come from RDU's weapon.
And currently he can't really do any of those things. Like, yes, Frostnova stalls for 1 turn. Yes, maybe he can then pick things apart with Rolling Fireball, Arcane Missiles, Devolving Missiles in some kind of combination, but in the meantime, while he's focused on doing that, there's going to be 17 damage a burst from RDU's hand just going straight at his face. So
he can go Nova Ray Ray, which is decent, kills 2 of the 3/2s.
No, that's not Twin Spell version in his hand right now, I don't think.
Oh, sorry, it's not. My apologies. He can Nova Ray, which kills 1 of the 3/2s.
Yeah. There
I
are
changed my
3 Soul Fragments, 2 Ray of Frost, 1 Ray of Frost.
Numbers. That looked like it didn't improve the board, but it did make the board much smaller, did it?
It did not.
Considering that's got Reborn on the 2/1.
RDU just off to the races here.
Yeah, with Double Skull, he has the luxury of just saying, oh yeah, well, okay, you froze my board, I'll just hit you in the face for 1 million instead.
Yeah.
No secrets to worry about.
Not entirely sure I like the board being filled this turn from RDU, just in the threat of another Frostnova or something being generated, and then Lapidary or something crucial just being picked up off the top that you really want to use a board space on. Small details, but I think it is maybe a slight lack of optimization here from RDU.
Okay, well that's a Mana Cyclone. Is Seiko actually just on the it has to be Frostnova plan here?
I think so. Even then, how likely is he to get there? It would have to be Frostnova and Mirror Image, something like that, if he's going to get there with that kind of line. Because I think he has to be reasonably expectant of there being the extra damage from RDU's hand.
Oh, okay. It was a good effort from Seiko, to be fair.
Yeah.
I do not know how that turn happened, but it did. So you always one maker, right?
You do indeed.
Twin Slice, it's just game. Oh.
That works sometimes too.
Yeah.
Nope.
Nope.
I see.
Play Dance, just gonna rub salt in the wound here, honestly. Because not only is RDU close to just lethaling him, he actually just removes a lot of Seiko's options next turn. And we can see, of course, whether it's hero power or needs the help of the Eldraki Warblades, there is the damage from hand for RDU if nothing pretty fantastic happens. But speaking of which...
I mean, there's already a Frostbolt. There's already a Frostbolt.
Yeah. So does he just start with Nova Frostbolt? And then Evo? I guess the 4 cost isn't going to be enough, right? Maybe he has to... Wait, does he leave Evo for next turn? Use his Icicle to draw instead?
Kind of like that, yeah. Frost Nova Icicle, Frostbolt the face. You could also just Rolling Fireball this turn and Frostbolt the face, because then that's kind of like max mana spent out of your hand, which gives you the best turn next turn to be able to pop off with Evocation, maybe?
I was just thinking what gives him the most draws for Mana Giant, because I think that's what he's after right now.
That's a good point, yeah.
That's like the card he needs to win. Mana Giant or Prime, obviously, which both draw them. And the Frost Nova Icicle draws cards when the other options don't.
Yeah, also the Prime's not actually in his deck because it got silenced. The Consume Magic happened on the
Oh yeah, there wasn't 2 this game, right?
No.
Forgive me. I'm used to seeing 800 Primes.
Yeah, lots of ways you could to go about that, but I am kind of compelled by the card draw argument, honestly. Just try and dig for like Mana Giant into Tyrion Walking Fountain or something ridiculous.
That sounds far-fetched, but guess what? Sometimes you need those outcomes to win a game of Hearthstone.
Yes. So one thing you don't do here as RDU is play Eldraki Warblades. That is illegal this turn. There's why.
Yep.
Thank you.
Imagine.
Thank you,
So,
video
magic
game.
trick to start. Oh, he can ping first, I guess, if he wants, right?
You can ping first if you would like to, yeah. That ain't it either.
And Elementals is switched off at the moment, still at 0.
Counterspell's nothing. It's at best a bluff value, but the bluff is nonsense. It always gets called. Yep. Goldshire Footman. Shield Bearer. Hungry Crab. Imprison Gannarg.
You win this.
And that is just going to be game. RDU takes game number 2 with a swift nod. And although that looked pretty grim for a lot of that game for Seiko, the Elemental Allies choice did not pay off when he did have the chance at Deep Freeze. It was a later game plan. It did require him to get to a point where he can Deep Freeze and not die, which is difficult to assume versus Demon Hunter, of course. But that definitely didn't pay off. But I do just like the last turn there from RDU. What looked like very straightforward pass. Maybe a lot of players would not have necessarily gone for that. He could have drawn with the Mana Feeder Panthera. He could have done a few other things. But I think as long as he didn't give any targets, especially, or too many targets for Seiko to go at and aim spells at, he was the least likely for anything bad to happen to him. So I actually quite like that, even though it looked like a bit of a dead turn.
Well, even more so than that, right? Like, the Eldraki Warblades part is obvious. You don't play it because Cobalt Sticky Finger, boom, healing, you don't have guaranteed lethal set up on the following turn. But you might be looking at it like, well, why on earth wouldn't you at least just play a 2-3 on board? Well, the problem is if you have a minion in play, suddenly Mana Giant into Conjure is calling. What do we talk about more than basically any other outcome when it happens there? Walking Fountain. It's caster bingo. It always comes up in that situation. If you don't have minions in play, that Walking Fountain cannot heal on that turn, and RDU would still have lethal through that outcome as well. So I think that was extremely well executed at the end of the game there for RDU.
Also, as well, makes him ping the Thalnos, which it might not make the biggest difference, but 2 mana spent versus not, right? It's just it's all these small things that just reduce the outs down to the bare minimum for Seiko. So it looked like a weird, like straightforward play because he just didn't do anything, but sometimes not doing anything is correct. Here we are going to see RDU's Highlander Rogue. Ignore the Secret Rogue. I've already been shouted at for that today. But it's going to be the Highlander Rogue for RDU, and this could make him look, maybe right all along, sort of, if he manages to 3-0 Seiko off the back of a final win with this Rogue.
Yeah, and this was exactly one of the justifications that I was given from RDU when I was asking about his lineup is that he said he felt this matchup specifically was better with the Highlander Rogue. He said, again, also very specifically that he did not feel like it was fantastic, but he felt like it was a good enough matchup to justify the inclusion. Early Edwin in the opening hand is certainly a big deal in just about any matchup, this one included. But it remains to be seen from my perspective, because I am yet to be converted to the school of Highlander Rogue, Raven. So let's see if RDU can rub some egg in my face here with a fantastic first attempt Highlander Rogue performance against Seiko.
Yeah, his hand is definitely shaping up. It's not the most explosive opening, but it's a lot of stuff to do, because guess what? When you play a Highlander deck, a lot of the time you can whiff in your opening hand pretty hard. Whereas right now, RDU does have plenty of options.
How much is this worth to you?
River Croc.
Sometimes a River Croc is enough. It did stop the play I really wanted to see from Seiko this turn.
Tempo Tricaster?
Oh, yeah. Would have been so... If this was an empty board, of course, I'm not suggesting it now, but...
Yeah.
It would have been tempting, wouldn't it?
It's still honestly not that bad.
I guess if it eats a dagger,
Yeah.
or a backstab, it's not bad.
It's one of those plays where you just kind of play for upside. Because even if the downside occurs, right? Like, you play Tricaster, if it sticks, it's obviously insane. If it doesn't stick, you still then have Astromancer Cram Session to fall back on the following turn anyway, which is not that bad. So I think it was a play that you could have made for disruption purposes. It was probably worth thinking about. Yo! Well, let's do that. Does Strand your Miscreant? Do you care?
Well, this is the thing. Normally, I would have already played this Van Cleef, but the more and more I watch pro players play Rogue, they seem to always do the Miscreant instead. Like, always.
Right.
To set up for the bigger Cleef. Maybe it is different in Highlander. Maybe there is more reason to go for the big Van Cleef while you can. Yeah, are you going to sign up for an 8-8? Oh, one thief.
Seiko needs his help. Needs some help. Small shake of the head. It's kind of the two sides of the coin here for Seiko of what we've seen today. The last series, Seiko had the rub of the green. Everything was going his way. He absolutely just blew Boston away. But now, situation has flipped. He's up against the OG high roller now, Raven.
Magic Trick devolving.
Nope.
Okay, he can still Cram Session for devolving. He does run a natural one in his list. It's worth just drawing, right?
I think so.
Also, he can potentially kill, right?
He could. Like, there are multiple draws he can hit here, but he took Tricaster for this expressed purpose, right? Of being able to Tricaster Cram Session at some point.
Okay. God Arcane Missiles? No, okay.
Job done.
RDU does need a draw here to actually enable him to do something, and that's pretty much perfect.
It's tough though, right? Because is there ever actually... Because this will use up all his mana, he won't be able to play a Lackey. Is it ever potentially worth, like... Okay, question one. Is he trading this Van Cleef into the Apprentice? If not, does he ever, like, freeze something here instead?
Well, even if you're going to Shadow Weaver, you might as well praise Galakron first, because if you praise Galakron into Kobold Lackey, you probably just do that, right? You Kobold Lackey the Sorcerer's Apprentice, you dagger up, and you call that a Hearthstone.
True. Yeah, I guess you can... Yeah, it's that... I mean, that happens first no matter what, right?
I think so, yeah.
So I guess it's this, then review the situation.
That's not the boy.
Yeah, we're going to see the freeze.
Oh!
I mean, it is the most damage on board, right?
I mean, yeah, it's just the not trading it part that I was reacting to. Like, I think, again, random game on ladder, you could not pay me enough money to not send 9 damage to the face there, but I think with everything that's on the line here, that element of safety creeps into the back of your mind, but kind of the fallacy of safety creeps into your mind as well. There's a natural tendency for Hearthstone players to feel like trading is safer always, and that's just not necessarily the case.
Oh,
Hello? Hello!
That Van Cleef just dodged those arcane missiles like he dodged the Hall of Fame every single year. Untouchable.
What animal has RDU sacrificed to the god of arcane missiles? Because I thought this was just a Casey problem, but apparently anyone that casts missiles against RDU just cannot catch a break.
Evil lurks in these
It's just Lillian Lackey, right? That's insane. You Lillian Rush Lackey into the Sorcerer's Apprentice, and then you get the other attack as well, and then you push 9 more.
I was waiting for him to aim at the Tricaster.
Yeah, he just believes.
Just believe.
Yeah. I mean, obviously. What other outcome was possible? What other outcome was possible, Raven?
Okay. This could have done with a turn earlier for Seiko when that Sorcerer's Apprentice was just chilling. Literally. But the Evocation could still dig him out. Got a lot of goes at this. There's a freeze. There's a mirror image. There's 2 brain freezes, which looks pretty good to me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it says explode!
Does he? Oh no, it wouldn't work. Never mind.
If this missiles works, he does get to play Cram Session, though, so I do really like this sequencing.
Oh, I guess he can always trade the 2/2, right? So
I
don't mind
guess,
this.
yeah. All right. I
Yeah.
suppose if you're committed to Cram Session, you're committed to
just
Cram
bank
Session.
it, yeah.
Yeah, it's fine.
One of the things I was going to say, but then obviously reviewing mana, it could not be done. But I was even looking at the potential of Potion, because it, it'll give him another 1 maker, which, because although he deals with the Van Cleef, he has to think about the future and what the next few turns look like. RDU, really unlucky the Van Cleef got killed off there. I guess he had to have a good draw with Zephyrus to make up for it.
Do you play it? I think you have to play it.
Just play it to activate the Miscreant.
Yeah, I think it's Bloodfen Raptor to combo your Miscreant, right? Like, so what does it even give you here? If it thinks you want to play this turn for 4 mana?
Would it offer it was Shadow Flame?
No, I don't think it's going to focus board clear that heavily. It'll give you like it'll give you like water elemental type
Multi-shot?
stuff a lot of the time.
Many.
Your wish is my
I don't think it'll prioritize clearing that heavily. I think you'll get some proactive options here. Yeah, okay.
I would not have guessed these 3 cards. I'm throwing it out there. 0, 4
me
mana
neither.
cards offered. That was, yeah, wouldn't have guessed that one. I'm just saying that right now.
Right.
So still go for Miscreant though, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you still Miscreant, yes.
Miscreant, and one of the lackeys can just prop the SI next turn. Worst case scenario, if for whatever reason Hardy wouldn't want to play Tiamat.
Agreed. Faceless.
Oh, okay. Not bad. Now there's 2 magic tricks and the Cyclone here. Ray of Frost, good pickup for Seiko. The continue issue we're going to have here for Seiko is he seems to be holding on, but when is the turn going to come where he actually starts to fight back?
Right. And the answer could be very soon, depending on what this Cyclone hands out to him. This is now the
Down some health.
3rd spell already, so it's unlikely he can play Evocation and Cyclone this turn, so I think he just has to Cyclone and hold on to the Evocation.
Agree. Even a ping is fine this turn, right? And he just holds off for the big Evocation turn, or bigger Evocation turn next turn.
That's right. Yeah.
Time runs out on me.
Nothing super exciting there.
Not even going to ping either. I think with a lackey in hand, it might have been worth killing the Miscreant.
Yeah, very possibly.
On wings of evil.
None
So
of these
Dread's
line
pretty
up.
insane.
Yeah, none of these line up with the SI if he wants to go for it this turn, but maybe he can just get away with Waxadread now.
Yeah, I think he played the Draconic Lackey this turn because he didn't necessarily want to SI. No? Alright, I'm wrong. Fair enough.
Well, I think if he didn't want to SI, he would have played the Tiamat, right?
Not necessarily. Like, Tiamat Rush Divine Shield can have impact later on. Like, you could have Tiamat Rush Wind Fury there for pretty good value. But I was certainly considering the same thing I thought RDU did at the start of the turn, which was just play the Draconic Lackey to get a generic mid-range dragon to play down there, right? Like Dragonmaw Skystalker, Laxadread, anything like that, really, just to drop and fill out the mana that turn. He did end up going with the SI.
Well, Conjures would be a pretty big deal.
It would. No.
Whoa, 4 combustions in hand now.
Hello?
Feel bad for Seiko, but that is just funny. Use a Ray of Frost just to get the true one in his hand. Combustion is going to be able to clean up this board. You can follow it with a counter spell, I imagine.
Time runs out on me.
Yep, looks pretty good. But the flick for the Mana Giant. Oh,
This flick is absolutely enormous now, indeed. Shadow Step on top of that as well? Does the 4/4 in play just have more value? Does testing for Counterspell or Spellbender while you actually have a minion in play to do so, is that worth anything?
well, at least he knows it's not Entity, right? Which is priority number 1, I think, right now for RDU.
Sure.
So, worst case, he can, like, Hothead Shadow Step. It's Counterspell. He still has a Hothead. It's Spellbender. He has a 1/3 in his hand. You know what I mean? So, I think it's okay as long as he knows it's not Entity. Killing those Mana Giants off is huge.
It has to be big old whelp, right? I don't really see the need for Alexstrasza. Obviously, you're a little bit scared because you are getting kind of low and you don't actually have any way to protect yourself, but it's not really any kind of burst-heavy deck that's from RDU.
Time runs out on me.
Yeah, I was more thinking, like, is the just 8/8 more valuable? Because Seiko might actually be killing this flick this turn. And then if he is, should you have may as well pick the 8/8? you know, I'm not sure. It depends what he wanted to do, of course, about this flick, if anything. I think it was worth considering a little bit more, maybe.
Can you spend 9 on 1 minion against Rogue ever? Is that ever a thing you can do?
Highlander Rogue? Yeah.
Okay, Ice Barrier is checked, Mirror Entity is checked. So he knows it is a spell-based secret, Vaporize or Flame Ward at this point.
I imagine if this flick lives, he might actually try and bounce it before he attacks in, or use it to just say, well, if it's Flame Ward, it'll deal 4. If it's not Flame Ward and Vaporize, it dies.
Again, I was kind of into just trying to pick it up again right there.
But what if it's Vape? No, wait,
Then
he knows, right? Did you test it?
He attacked face with Dagger, so it can still be
right.
I mean, then you have a flick in your hand. Like, is that the worst thing in the world? I don't know. I guess leaving it in play here just straight up threatens lethal. I guess that's the obvious fact that I'm overlooking right now.
Yeah, I think RD wants to actually just finish the game. And I think if he doesn't have to cast a spell, if he then plays around the Vape, then sticks to Tiamat. It's twice, GG. Go for the missiles. They were horrible.
What did you expect?
Well, he could have just gone for double Ray. That's the difference, right? He could have just guaranteed the kill on the flick.
Yep.
Go for a slightly riskier play, and he kind of got punished for it there. Now he can Shadow Step it. He can Shadow Step that. Wait, after the attack, now surely Vendetta's first.
It's either Counterspell or Spellbender or Netherwind Portal at this point.
What makes something real?
to see what the minions are from Dendis first. Oh. Maybe he wants to shadow step, that's all.
That's an 8-8.
It is an 8-8.
You don't do the thing people do here, right? Like, I want that 8-8 to be an 8-8. I do not care about my opponent's minions having reborn.
Yeah, he picked the Harrison, didn't he?
Okay.
I'm 99% sure he picked Harrison there. For the weakness.
Okay.
Oh, didn't go for the Vendetta first. Interesting. Has to play the Hothead. I mean, this is just an overwhelmingly huge board here for Seiko to deal with. Raz, Ray of Frosts, Combustion, all these things are actually pretty good for Seiko to hold on. And now with RDU with one card in hand, maybe the light is shining at the end of the tunnel here for Seiko if you could just hold on that little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
RDU playing Highlander Rogue does mean he has both the weakest and strongest top decks, I think, out of the two, which sounds a little bit weird to say.
What to do? What to do?
Oh, a little bit weird, right, with this missiles too. Probably doesn't want to use it on this board.
Time runs out on me.
Oh, this is so much closer than it looked like it was going to be in the opening turns, Raven.
It really is. Both minions frozen. I didn't see what that was, but it looked legendary to me. Kronks.
Kronks is huge. Only one freeze remaining in hand here for Seiko. Doesn't have a realistic out for lethal off the top here either, I would say.
Yep. Just going to Vendetta the 1-2. I like it. Just do it. Yep. You know you're going to Galakron next turn no matter what anyway.
Well, I mean, crucially, you also get that taunt on your Crimson Hothead here to prevent you from taking the 3, which cuts off so many more outs from Seiko's side.
Oh, this is so close. These devolving missiles could make or break this game. RDU's face. Wait, we can't because it's in his hands.
Oh, taunt again! Oh, no! The taunt again means that Seiko can barely even take power off the board. He can ping, he can freeze, but he's not pushing any damage, so he's not even immediately setting up lethal for himself on the following turn.
I even wondered then if he actually could leave the 4-5 unfrozen and use the second ray on the taunt so it dies this turn.
Dark in the skies.
This is so tense.
Dirty tricks is the draw.
Does he have to? Just has to go dirty tricks, right? Put the most power on board, give him a chance at drawing some cards, because right now one lackey is not going to save the day here.
Oh! Brutal. Absolutely brutal draw.
Yeah, literally worst card in the deck?
Yeah.
Maybe not actually the worst. I'm not sure what he's got left, but like a 1 thief on its own would be worse, but I think he's played them both.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder.
It does mean now Seiko can at the very least trade down some of this board. He still has the reborn effect on Shenvala and Raz, so he can clear this up and represent, what, 15 on the next turn? He can actually just clear this board and threaten lethal.
No spell from Seiko actually means that RDU isn't getting any cards either.
I think Seiko is actually ahead. Lethal represented on board. RDU
Hog?
needs a draw. Spell Lackey needs to find an answer. Fan of Knives? Does that keep him alive?
No.
Nope.
Like, Fan of Knives into something might, though, right? He probably has to take Fan, doesn't he?
What if?
Yeah, I was just thinking about the unidentified contract outs as to like what it can transform into that will give you a way out of that. But it's all a formality. An RDU after the giant Edwin at the start of the game, threatening to run away with that one. The comeback from Seiko has brought him all the way back into this series, and now once again, the pressure is absolutely on RDU with this Highlander rogue, because it's hard to imagine, honestly, things working out much better for him, at least in the early game. His hand just did get completely starved of value because he didn't hit any of his value generators in the mid game, like the Galakron, the Togwaggle, etc. That stuff all came a bit too late for him to be able to stay high on resources. But in terms of curving out in the early game, that was about as good as it gets for the deck. And he was not able to get himself over the line against the Tempo Mage, which, remember, was the matchup that he specifically called out was the reason why he chose to go with the Highlander version of the deck.
I think the big difference for me, really, there, or the difference that could have been made, was I think with pretty confident or sure knowledge, he could have actually tested the Vendetta instead of playing the Hothead, and then had the Shadow Step for Jandis on that turn. Instead, he went to try and Shadow Step Jandis, couldn't, and then played the Hothead instead because the Shadow Step got counterspelled. That would have given him a whole additional Jandis to play, and honestly, how close that game ended up, that might have been enough for him to actually win. Again, you can go back and debate whether that was right or wrong, whether the Vendetta and the Hothead ended up better anyway or not. But one additional decent Jandis could have just won him the game there because it was so close.
Yeah, it was like, it's awkward for sure because like what RDU did was max tempo that turn, right? Because if he uses the Vendetta to break the counterspell, it's not like he can replay the Jandis on the same turn anymore. He Shadow Steps it and holds it for next turn because he's already had 4 mana get countered on the Vendetta, right, when he plays that. So he actually made a more aggressive push on that one turn to try and end the game by just playing out Crimson Hothead, which I think you can certainly defend. Like, you can totally understand the thinking behind that.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, I think that Shadow Step and how it interacted with like the counterspell, what we knew was counterspell the whole time. Like, I was trying to do my best to talk about it from RDU's perspective as much as possible in terms of which secrets he'd ruled out. But I really wanted to like try and rip that Shadow Step multiple times just to get that secret out of the way, give yourself freedom. It didn't end up being that big of a deal from the perspective of what I was talking about because he didn't draw other spells that he was like looking to play to have a big impact on the game. But certainly, I think that counterspell Shadow Step interaction, whether it's from what you're talking about, what I'm talking about, or the line that RDU ended up taking, I think that was potentially a big crux of the game for sure.
Well, let's dive straight into game number 4. It's going to be a Rogue Mirror, but Seiko, of course, on the 2-of Rogue, the secret Rogue. That we're used to seeing on broadcast at least, and RDU on this Highlander list, and already not getting off to the best outcome here with the Generous Mummy in hand, of course, after that Pharaoh Cat. But outside of that, he is piecing together at least a curve. But whether that curve is going to be good enough, only time will tell, because right now all I see is one player with some kind of clunky minions, and the other player with resources upon resources upon resources right now. Okay.
Well, this is a Hearthstone turn.
Even the prep.
Draconic? You don't draw spells with as much frequency as you do in Mage.
Top Blizzard seems fine.
Yeah.
And RDU can't believe it. Look at it. Like, I'm the only one allowed to make big rogue minions early in the game.
Prep Icicle is just a little bit off because your dagger's frozen, so you can't get the clear that way. Might just be Icicle still, though. Flame Ward and Blizzard seem to be largely redundant with each other. Maybe Icicle's just the best card to have here.
Flame Ward might be okay, because if he's going to prep Plagiarize this turn, then he has a secret already in hand for Hana if he's drawn it. It's a stretch, though. I don't think there's anything too much to defend either way. This is so... Oh, how do you? You're an entertainer. No one tells you otherwise. He plays it.
Oh, insane.
This is genius. He gives Seiko a bad card.
And a
Whilst
discount
gaining
to
tempo.
every card in his hand while there's a questing adventurer on the board. I kind of agree though. Like he's just dying to the questing adventurer straight up, right?
Yeah.
Like he needs a 5/4 to be able to trade with the questing.
Exactly. And however much this is not a good card, it is a 5/4 that's hard to kill. So
Yes. No. Oh, why did it have to be Plague of Madness? Come on. Any other 1-mana card would have been absolutely broken there.
hey, Ship's pretty good. That's a 1-mana card, the way I can see it.
Sinister Strike. Rip Sinister Strike.
So Sol, should this be a rogue card? Because I think it'd be very funny if it was.
Aww. Tricks.
I can just bounce.
Brain Freeze.
Too soon.
Is he gonna stun her? A restless mummy?
Yeah.
Is this the forbidden play?
Dogwaggle Scheme. Play it on the Fireheart. Yes! Oh,
Derek,
come on!
Can this one turn be every top 5 play this week? That's my question, because it is hilarious.
I guess after he brain freezes it, there's no actual
If it's
reason to
frozen,
Blackjack
yeah.
Stunner it back. Yeah, seems
But
fine.
if he couldn't freeze it, I think he does bounce it, right? He's had his use out of it, makes his opponent pay mana for it again if he needs to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's just going to be the concede, just like that. RDU's Highlander Rogue taking 2 losses in a row now, and it is going to come all the way back to this final game. Highlander Rogue going up against Demon Hunter, and this is one matchup that, again, I've not been playing a lot of Highlander Rogue in this meta myself, but it's one I'd be a little bit afraid of. I would not like to fight a Demon Hunter with this list.
Yeah, I agree. Personally, I'm just really, really happy that after I talked about how there was this cute interaction where you could cheat Instructor Fireheart just with Vendetta.
Right.
Clearly, I wasn't thinking big enough. I should have been thinking in terms of Generous Mummy on the other side of the board for your Instructor Fireheart turn. That's the real way to scam that card. But yeah, I mean, you saw right there exactly why the card text on Instructor Fireheart says costs 1 or more. Because the ability to get a 0-mana spell from Fireheart is completely broken.
Right.
And you do have to create weird, strange interactions to make that happen now, one of which being Generous Mummy. But fully respect RDU's play there. I think, Lorinda in particular, but casters in general, it's easy prey when someone plays a Generous Mummy and then they lose the game, and we get to go, aha, but myself, an intellectual, wouldn't have made that play because you got punished for it. But in that situation, I think it's absolutely correct to play the Generous Mummy because he was going to lose to that questing adventurer regardless of whether or not Seiko got to play an Instructor Fireheart turn, right? What he really needed was a 5/4 in play that he can use to contest the board.
Yeah, and I'm going to go out there and say I'm one of the casters who says stuff about Restless Mummy the least because I have lost to that card on ladder because it was a 5/4 and it's hard to kill, which is a factor, right? Obviously, we saw the massive downside and the most common outcome in the last game, but enough of that before Lorinda completely loses his mind. Let's go into this game here. It is that Highlander Rogue versus the Demon Hunter, and like I said, personally, I'd be a little bit afraid now if I was RDU.
I would be a little bit afraid right now if I was Seiko, though, based on this opening draw, because that is fairly miserable looking at the moment. And this is a pretty rapid start from RDU.
Lady Leatrin, let's go. You can play 2
never
off in his
again.
Highlander deck.
Never again, Raven.
Wow.
Never again.
We got our 1 and that's it.
This curve, though, Spy Mistress on 1 into comboed 1 Thief into Zixor from the Dragon's Horde. This is pretty insane looking so far.
All with that pocket Shadow Step there for RDU, because he could Shadow Step this 1 Thief if it's required at any point, right? If he wants more resources to cover some of the future turns.
Right.
Hide behind your servants.
No Soul Fragments is becoming a problem here for Seiko. Lapidary and the Shard Shatter now. I do think we might well see this Sticky Finger almost no matter what next turn.
Yikes.
He's just got to make room for that skull.
Oh,
I said almost, Sol. I said
The
almost.
qualifying statement of almost was indeed there, Raven.
Yep. Oh, what if you just do it anyway? It challenges the Zigsaw, to be fair.
Yeah, this kills the Zigsaw and challenges the face, though, which I am far more interested in.
You know it hurts me not to play Skull on 6.
Yep. That's a Vendetta off the top. Of course that's a Vendetta off the top. It's still a pretty bad turn for RDU overall there. Spending 0 mana in general, but not taking 6 is a huge deal. Now he can curve into Coin Tiamat potentially on the follow-up.
It is one of the reasons why I was talking about the Shadow Step on the One Thief. It might have looked like a little bit extra or whatever, but it will look at RDU's hand. What was he going to do in the next couple of turns unless something perfect lined up? I do think it was worth a consideration. As always, it's one of my pet cards I like to talk about. If you've got Shadow Step in your hand for multiple turns, should you have? Coin CMI though. Gonna accelerate this game plan for RDU. Now he only needs to fill one more turn before the dreaded Deep Freeze comes down.
That is true. Seiko now has unlocked this skull on the right-hand side, which is also, of course, going to unlock the dirty tricks for RDU. Suddenly, options are plenty for Seiko, but still missing those crucial soul fragments.
And that's a way to fill a turn, Sol. Zephyrus. Even with a Shadow Step if needed.
Yep.
Job done.
Oh, 6 damage into the Tiamat, it looks like. Can't imagine this is going upstairs. Yeah, just has to respect the trade. Not the
At least
position.
he gets to negate it.
Not the position that Seiko wants to find himself in. Harrison Jones. Shadow Step for Zephyrus.
And RDU's feeling it now, isn't he? Everything's coming together finally for this Highlander Road.
Oh my
Oh.
god. That's so brutal.
Can start with one maker. Okay, I'll strike, I guess. Either or. Pretty good.
Okay, Mara Slicer. Finally.
And the bonus he does get now as well is that he can play the Shard Shatter and the Skull next turn, if he needs to, of course. There are other options, but he can access that Skull again if he needs to. It's a pretty big deal. Psycho on the back foot, but now he has a plan.
Does he?
Now he had a plan.
Does he, Raven?
Break the
Deep
game
freeze.
so you can consume magic your own face.
Oh, Soul Shear is massive. That's now 4 fragments in the Militia.
And you just go, right? Anything to kill these water elementals, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. He's going to try and stick the biggest board possible here by using the Shard Shatter as well. Like, you know your opponent has Zephyrus in their hand, though, right?
Yeah,
Does the extra
I
board
actually don't
presence
mind
really
this.
achieve anything?
Well, yeah, it spends the mana now, so he has the mana free for more Skull stuff next turn.
That's true. Yeah,
and
yeah,
also, although it uses up a shard, it gains him extra minions on board now, so it forces a Zephyrus out, I guess, is the way to look at it.
It's fair. Alright, yeah, I'm on board.
Yeah, I actually think this was a pretty clever turn, and one I almost certainly would not have done. Flash scene.
Yeah, on reflection, I agree.
A little bit tricky here for RDU. And it's not tricky in the sense that he can't deal with this board. It's tricky to work out what the best way to deal with this board actually is.
Your wish is
So it's
my
pull off a Shadow Flame. Is that what he's going for now? I think he should have played the Plagiarize.
Well, it doesn't. I mean, that doesn't seem to have. It wouldn't have seemed to have influenced anything because he got the 4 mana 3 damage AoE anyway. It just gave him Hellfire instead of Shadow Flame, which is unusual in that situation, to say the least.
It's odd, isn't it?
Yeah.
Lapidary, hit you for 1 billion damage is my kind of Demon Hunter play. Suddenly RDU's on 7, and everything's just slipped away.
Mm-hmm.
What happened? Are we going to see Seiko go through to tomorrow?
So many options.
I'm not seeing a different timeline currently, Raven.
You can go for, yeah, if he gets rushed, then he can freeze and then use Lillian and then can he rush like? No.
Is it cold in the shadows?
Yeah, he could have frozen one, rushed into the other.
Yeah.
He would have been technically alive from what you can see. And the correct play that turn was to draw Flick and then just hope for some kind of minor miracle that gets you out of it. But
And with a skull, it is extremely likely that Seiko gets there, and he does with the Marrow Slicer. That's going to end the game, and what a series. The reverse sweep happened. Seiko fought back, and in the end, it was the Highlander Rogue, the risky pick from RDU. Ended up being his downfall. No one has been playing Highlander Rogue all season, and really all expansion. Maybe we just saw why.
maybe we did indeed, but certainly, like, I have zero interest in rubbing salt in the wounds at this point, because obviously RDU is going to be absolutely heartbroken to miss out on a World Championship performance here. Like, I made my feelings clear on Highlander Rogue at the beginning, and I will stand by them, but, you know, I don't want to just pile more misery onto RDU here by rubbing it in. Like, genuinely, RDU is someone who I'm a big fan of. He's given me hours upon hours upon hours of entertainment and watching his stream, so I would have loved to have seen him go to the World Championship, and as I kept telling people, he really is the nearly man of the World Championship at this point, and you can add this one to the list. It's not quite as close as one match away. It's not quite as close as one game away, but it was still 24 hours away. You know, like, he was right there. He was on the line, but instead, it's Seiko who is going to be joining Tice in tomorrow's bracket final, fighting out for that spot at the World Championship. And as I mentioned, I think Seiko will be a very, very fitting contributor to the World Championship. I think he's a very, very creative player. I think he thinks outside the box in terms of deck building. I think he thinks outside of the box in terms of plays. I think sometimes he's rewarded for that, sometimes he's punished for that. But I think for a number of years now, he has had respect from the pro community as one of the absolute best that the game has to offer. So I would love to see Seiko picking up a spot at the World Championships.
Yep, no matter what the outcome is, the truth will always be that Seiko is an exciting